recognize the presence of our UN Secretary General and also our CARICOM Secretary General. To the media, we want to thank you for your presence, and of course to the residents and citizens of Dominica, the many dozens of volunteers and service providers who are representing countries and institutions, especially the UN systems. Secretary General, we thank you for bearing witness today, bearing witness to the future for all humanity, and if we do not respond to climate change. At the United Nations General Assembly, I reported that I had come straight from the front line in the war against climate change. We thank you for visiting us on the front to express your support in person. We thank you for taking the time to walk with us on this battlefield of shattered lives. We thank you too for responding so quickly to our request for assistance in the coordination of emergency relief. We trust that you agree that we are moving in the right direction at the right pace. We thank you and your team for the help with our relief efforts across the board, and especially on getting food and water to those who need it. We look forward to partnering with you at the next stage of revitalizing our food markets. Your Excellency, our devastation is so complete that our recovery has to be total. And so we have a unique opportunity to be an example to the world, an example of how an entire nation rebounds from disaster and how an entire nation can be climate resilient for the future. We did not choose this opportunity. We did not wish it. Having had it thrust upon us, we have chosen actively and decisively to be that example to the world. We recognize that we cannot do that quicker, better, and more impactfully in combination with our United Nations. I ask you to join us on our journey to become the world's first climate-resistant nation in the climate change era. I see an important role for the United Nations in guiding us with good analysis on how to achieve and monitor national climate resilience. We know we need food, energy, and ICT security. We know we need to redesign, re-engineer, recite, rebuild whole communities and their schools, clinics, and community facilities and shelters. We know we must make our most vulnerable people less so, because they carry the brunt of disasters. And we know we must do this all in a professional and well-governed manner that would encourage the international development agencies to invest their funds. These issues are as much about the politics of change as anything else. We value your insights on our task, but we caution that this is not an academic debate for us. It is real and present. At the moment, Your Excellency, I consider my greatest challenge is to do all that we must do quickly. We must do it comprehensively and correctly, but quickly. Efficiently and cost-effectively, but quickly. Fairly and transparently, but quickly. I recognize that it will never be quick enough, but it does need to be quick. In this regard, and in our discussions with our international development partners, we would welcome your support and power. Your Excellency, in this particular point, there is one issue of commitments and access to resources, but critically for us is the efficient manner in accessing those funds and having them manifest themselves in a practical way on the ground. And this is one of the messages we would like to echo to the international community, that we must work together with small island states like ours, with limited capacities, and to see how we can work together to overcoming the bureaucratic hurdles in accessing the funds and accessing it quickly. And you have recognized on the ground here in Dominica, our entire forest has been devastated, our agriculture completely blown away. Homes, private homes, public institutions, all of these things will need to be rebuilt. And we are reminded that the next hurricane season is just a few months away. And the current one will still have 2 more months before it ends. Your Excellency, I want to really thank you profusely on behalf of the people of Dominica for your presence here. It is testament to your commitment to small island states, your concern for small island states, and the care which your office and yourself personally has placed on small islands like Dominica. It is the first time in the entire history of the United Nations, and of course in our 40 years of independence, that we have been visited by the Secretary General of the United Nations. For both of us and for all of us, we would have hoped it would have been in different circumstances, but we're nonetheless very pleased, because we need you now, the United Nations now, more than ever. With these few words, Your Excellency, I would kindly invite you to speak to our people. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your kind words and for the warm welcome of the government and of the people of the Commonwealth of Dominica. This visit is indeed a visit of solidarity with your people and your government. And I have to say that even if I had heard about it, if I have seen images in the media, in our own UN system, I was deeply impressed by two things. First, by the dramatic level of devastation, of systematic devastation of your country. I have never seen anywhere else in the world a forest completely decimated without one single leaf in any tree. Even if I come from Barbuda, and in Barbuda I could see also most of the houses destroyed. Barbuda is a small island linked to Antigua. In Antigua can support Barbuda, but in your country is the whole country that has been decimated, and it's in every community I see most of the buildings destroyed or heavily damaged. On the other hand, I was impressed by the effective response that your government and your people, with the resilience of your communities, was able to put together. A response that allows what I see today to be very different already from what we could see immediately after the hurricane. I want to thank the distinguished members of the media that have accompanied me, and I apologize if I will repeat myself, but I wanted to address also particularly the media of Dominica. And to say that in the expression of the solidarity that this visit represents, I have two main concerns. One is to make sure that the international community fully recognizes that this intensity of hurricanes and this multiplication of hurricanes in the Caribbean in this season is not an accident. It is the result of climate change. I see sometimes people saying, well, we always had hurricanes, we always had storms, or we always had droughts. It is true. But what we never had is this intensity, this frequency, and this devastating impact. According to the research done by the World Meteorological Organization, in the last 30 years, we have seen tripled the number of natural disasters and 5 times more the economic damage caused by them. And obviously, it's climate change that is behind that. And today there is a scientific proof of the link between climate change and the intensity of these hurricanes. And it is linked to the increased temperature of the water in the oceans. When an hurricane moves through the ocean, as the water is warmer, there is more evaporation, there is more vapor in the air. Rains in general, rainstorms tend to be much heavier, but the hurricane, instead of dissipating, is fueled by moving over the ocean because of the increase in the temperature of the water. And that is why we see hurricanes starting with one level and going up to level 5, and that's why we see such devastating impacts. Today there is a scientific proof that climate change is largely responsible for this dramatic increase in the intensity and devastation caused by the hurricanes in the Caribbean and by many other phenomena around the world. And the other expression of solidarity is to say that it is clear, and it must be clear for the international community, that the level of support that Dominica requires cannot be achieved through the traditional instruments. There must be, even if Dominica is a middle-income country, but a middle-income country with an enormous vulnerability that was proven now in a very dramatic way, there must be a review of the way middle-income countries that are particularly vulnerable to external shocks are supported with direct support, with concessional loans. There must be new financial instruments, bonds of different natures, linked namely to the build-up of resilience. There must be a way to look into the debt of these countries and to transform it into an instrument of reconstruction and resilience. There must be a number of innovative forms of financing that are essential for this country to be able, even with the extraordinary effort of the government of the people, for the country to be able to rebuild itself. And I would like to say how much I appreciate the vision and the wisdom with which the Prime Minister has claimed that not only he wants the country to be reconstructed, but he wants the country to become the first entirely climate resilient country in the world, and I would say the first green climate resilient country in the world, because that is what I heard in the different meetings we had. In whatever we will be able to do, the United Nations is entirely at your side. We have been cooperating in your efforts with our limited capacity, but I'm proud that my colleagues are doing their best. But our voice will be together with your voice, claiming for the world to assume its responsibilities in relation to climate change, for the Paris Agreement to be implemented, and for an increased ambition to be put in place, and at the same time for the adequate financial instruments to be created and with easy access in order for your reconstruction that you are so determined in pursuing. Your reconstruction becomes a real possibility for the benefit of the people of the Dominica, but also for the benefit of all the citizens of this region of the Caribbean that can face at any moment a similar situation as the one that you have faced. My total solidarity and my gratitude for your very warm welcome.
Any questions?
Yes, Prime Minister Jacqueline Charles. Jacqueline Charles, Miami Herald. Can you tell us what would a green climate resilient Dominica look like, and what will it require?
Well, you know, we'll be pursuing very heavily renewable energy. We started or move towards geothermal. It is something I will continue to pursue. We'll look at a mix of solar also, and to reduce on the use of fossil fuels. Our hospitals and clinics need to be smart, take into consideration all of the vulnerabilities which we are subjected to, the increasing vulnerabilities which we're subjected to. The infrastructure. We need to look at the infrastructure and build more climate resilient infrastructure, take into consideration the existing environment, and how do we build the infrastructure around the environment, not impacting the environment, but utilizing the resources from the environment to build that climate resilient infrastructure. Or agriculture. what are the crops we need to plant, and where should we plant these crops? You know, in this hurricane, some of the foods which have survived are the root tubers, and we need to pursue this more vigorously, and to be advised on the locations, the sites. We need to plant these types of food. So in the event that we are faced with a situation like this, our buildings can be more resilient. We can have power back much more efficiently as we're currently experiencing, with all of these high tension wires straddling the mountains and the valleys of our country. Our homes, we need to ensure that our homes are taking into consideration the climatic conditions, the changes in environmental patterns, and building these structures more in a more resilient fashion. When we rebuild this country as a resilient nation, we should not have a situation where our main hospital becomes dysfunctional, unable to provide some of the most basic services to our citizens. So we're learning from our experiences, and we'll be seeking the best advice the world can offer in building this infrastructure, in the designs of the infrastructure, in the reciting of those pieces of infrastructure, so that anytime we are subjected to this kind of harsh realities, we'll be in a better position to, one, withstand these situations, but also critically to bounce back much quicker, and allowing the road to recovery to be much more shorter and quicker for us and so on. So there'll be a number of elements which the government will articulate in the weeks and months ahead, in terms of all of the sectors: agriculture and tourism, our public infrastructure, our private infrastructure, reviewing the construction codes of our country, and to see where the gaps are, where the shortcomings are, and how we can strengthen those codes to ensure that our people, when we rebuild, we can withstand beyond a Category 5, because, as you recognize, Irma was in many respects beyond a Category 5 hurricane, and therefore the intensity of these hurricanes are increasing, and we need to ensure that we can build greater resilience in our infrastructure. Cost-wise, as I said in my very first comments after the hurricane, we have lost everything money can buy. Now we'll need money to pay for everything money can pay for. So we're going to need a significant sum of resources. The approach the government is taking is to have our international independent partners to come in to do the independent assessments, the World Bank, the UN systems, the CARICOM, the OECD Secretariat Commission, UNECLAC, all of this, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank. All of these partners are joining together to do a comprehensive impact assessment of the hurricane on Dominica. What's the impact, and how much resources the government will need? Not only financial resources, but human capacity, because we're going to need tremendous capacity to help us rebuild this country from ground zero. So we do not yet have a precise figure, but looking around, one can appreciate you're going to need significant sums, especially if you're going to build back a more resilient country, and ensuring that we can withstand such disasters in the future. And this is why we believe the presence of our Secretary General here is so important. It really is reassuring that we know to know that the SG himself personally, not delegated this, himself personally is here, notwithstanding the fact that all of his staffers have been there helping in an exceptional way under difficult circumstances. He has taken the time to be here with us on this Sunday to express solidarity, and we're comforted by that, and we're eternally grateful to the SG for this manifestation of solidarity. Yeah, please.
Kyodo News, Japan's news agency. Thank you for this opportunity. So, Prime Minister, how long do you think it will take your country will be restored totally to its former state? And what do you expect from developed country like Japan to support your country?
The rebuilding phase will be the time which will take to rebuild our country will depend heavily on the international support we receive and how quickly those funds and that kind of assistance can reach us. If we're to rely on our own, I can say to you, it will be impossible. We will never be able to rebuild this country on our own. We do not have the resources, and we do not even have the means of borrowing to the extent that we need to borrow to rebuild this country. So we are literally at not only the mercies of God, but mercies of many of the countries, the developed countries. And we do not want there to be an unnecessary debate on issues of climate change. Climate change set aside, or climate change considered, we have a crisis now in this country, a member of the United Nations system, and I believe that we all in the world have a moral obligation and duty to assist us, to assist this country to restore lives and livelihoods, to build schools. If our children cannot get into schools, this is going to have an impact not only in our country but the world. You understand? On the world. What can the developed countries do? I mean, I know of the challenges in each of these countries, but we have to dig deeper into our consciences and recognize we ought not to leave a country like Dominica with no natural resources outside of its people on its own to restore the lives of the 72,000 lives that have been shattered as a result of this hurricane. And as I've said before, it is a war that we're fighting, which we did not start. We did not provoke the war. We did not invite this circumstance on us. And we would like and hoping that the international community, no matter how small or large the contribution is, it will make a difference in the lives of our citizens and in the future of our country. So we need as much resources. Of course, we'll wait for the World Bank and all the other UN systems and agencies, regional agencies report, which we will share with the world. Because we want to ensure at every step of the process, this government adheres to the good governance principles of transparency and accountability in the resources of those countries and institutions who provide to us. And we would like to work with these institutions and governments to improve on our capacities. Let us work together. It is not a situation where we simply want $50 million from you and that's it. Let us work with us to utilize those funds properly, efficiently, and to the benefit of the entire country and our citizens. So what your country can do, we have had excellent relations with Japan since our independence. Japan is a valued friend and partner of Dominica in many ways. There are many solid pieces of infrastructure which Japan has funded. Also in human resource development, Japan has been very helpful. Also in disaster mitigation and in support, your government, your people have been exceptional. If we needed Japan, yes, last year or the year before, we need Japan even more now. And I have no doubt that that your Prime Minister, your government, and your people will reach out to Dominica and the citizens with a strong demonstration of solidarity. Thank you.
Japan is the first country who are relaxing the capital income.
First country. So Japan has been exceptional to us in not only Dominica but the entire region. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, so we go to with your staffers.
Yes.